Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Game Master Solutions. This is GMKC. Today we are here with our 7th podcast, and I have my good friend Ian today with us. How you doing, Ian?
Hey, good. It's going to be a challenging one.
Today, our topic is skill challenges. And right off the bat, a lot of D&D players, even a lot of D&D veterans, perhaps, have no idea what a skill challenge is because it comes from 4th edition, which
Dun, dun, dun.
yes, yeah, which is generally speaking, amongst the D&D community is sort of maligned, but I really think it's a gem hidden in the coal, if you will. So,
I really like this concept, and they don't really go into it in 5th edition, so lay it on us.
Hell yeah. So what I've got here is, so this is the definition. A skill challenge is a series of skill checks by multiple characters where a certain amount of successes spread across multiple skills and characters must be achieved before a certain number of failures. So to put it in perspective, any sort of out of combat challenge can be boiled down to a skill challenge. Any sort of thing that your group is trying to do can be used in this way. So you put it to your players. You say, if you want to accomplish this goal, what steps will you take and what skills will you take to do it? And I do have some examples. I very much like to use them. Before we get into that, though, do you use them, Ian?
I want to say I think I have, but I definitely want to use them more because it's such a cool tool. It's really easy to throw a combat at your players, but for that one player who's like the face or who's got all these different skills and like non-combat skills, they kind of take a back seat, or they could take a back seat in combat. And these skill challenges are a way for you to kind of feature them and kind of really make them shine and be like, it's also a great way to move the story along. I think.
Absolutely. Definitely. I mainly use them to make travel interesting, actually. Getting from point A to point B, throw it in. They say that you've heard of the 3 pillars theory about how the three aspects of D&D are
combat, exploration, social interaction, or roleplay?
Roleplay.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. And and I'll be frank, most of the DMs I play with, and me certainly included, that the biggest pillar is combat. And so it really sort of fleshes out the world and the game instead of just strictly swinging swords and hitting monsters.
And I think that's kind of by design. The game has so much built around combat, and it's a very comfortable kind of thing to go to as a DM, because you're like, I know exactly everything's like in 6-second increments. Like everyone has a turn, everything's very structured. The bad guys do this. So when you're out of combat, you're doing social stuff. You're like, I don't know what's going to happen right now.
Right.
Skill challenges kind of can give it a little bit of structure.
Yeah, structure, and that's a big deal, and it feels good, I think, because sometimes, especially with new DMs, if you say, okay, make a persuasion check, and they do it, and they roll a 13, the DM's gonna be like, that's not amazing, it's not terrible, how do I interpret this at the table? But when you put it in the framework of skill challenges, it puts mechanics on it and makes it easier to interact with as a player.
Yeah, so, in fact, you were the one that actually I never saw it in game until you DM'd for me, and there was a bad guy. We just defeated him in combat, but he had like the artifact. He was running away, and you're like, okay, guys, this is what's called a skill challenge. I'm like, okay, wait, what? And you're like, okay, you need to get 3 successes? What was it again?
You can I like to get really wild with it, so for example, an easy skill challenge would be maybe 2 successes before 5 failures. That'd be an incredibly easy skill challenge. But a medium skill challenge, 3 successes before 3 failures. A difficult skill challenge would be 5 successes before maybe 2 failures.
Nice. But yeah, so we had to justify our skills. Like I was like, okay, well, I'm gonna use, you know, athletics and just like run my heart out, just sprint. And you're like, go ahead, make the roll, and you're like, okay, that's one success, and then you had like a little, you know, it's one success versus 0 failures, and then you kind of kept track of it that way.
Mm-hmm. And there's a couple of other minutia that go into skill challenge that, in my opinion, really make them robust and make them really make them robust. And the two aspects are: A, I never let PCs you can't use the same skill twice.
I like
Meaning,
that.
so if you're doing if you're doing a chase scene, for example, like you just suggested, I wouldn't let all of my players do athletics checks.
Right.
And so it sort of forces people out of their comfort zone and really starts to make them think, what is my character good at, and what will my character lean on in this scenario?
And I mean, I love this theory of like this constrained creativity. Like you have, you know, you have limits on what you can do, but inside that box, you can think of whatever you want to play by those rules. And I think that really lets your players get creative with their using different skills.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And the other aspect that makes it robust, in my opinion, is that you can vary DCs based on how applicable the skill is to what you're trying to do. And so, and how I explain that is that, for example, in Matt Mercer likes to do kind of a skill challenge for resurrections. And so like when, you know, bringing people back to life, they have to try to, you know, convince the soul of their friend to come back to the world. And so in that example, someone using a religion check to pray to the deities, the DC would be lower, because that makes a lot of sense. That's smart,
yes.
to pray to the deities to bring our friend back. But if you were trying to do an intimidation check to yell at the clouds, that DC would be very high, because that just doesn't make sense.
I was just thinking of like a deception check. You're not dead. You're not dead.
Right. Well, in that case, allow me to, if you don't mind, I'll go ahead and explain an example that I've used recently to great effect.
Nice. I've got examples, so let's hop back and forth.
Okay, cool. Yeah. Okay, so shout out to my Ghouls of Gravesford group. It's my zombie campaign that I'm currently running. And my players, they were fighting some kobolds, big group of kobolds, and the kobolds retreated across the plains. So they had to, you know, they sort of waited for a little bit, you know, had to heal up, drink potions, whatnot. So the kobolds had a head start. And so my players, I said, okay, and this one, it wasn't a difficult one. It was, I think, 3 successes before 3 failures. So that's a basic difficulty skill challenge. And one of my players did a survival check. He said, I will use, she rolled the dice on the survival check to try to actually track them. And the DC was low, because that's precisely what that skill is for. And she got a success, no problem.
Nice.
But then I had, this is where the creativity comes in, because my artificer, he didn't have anything that was perfect for this situation.
Right.
So I ended up having him, he threw out that he was going to do a history check to try to think about the uses, or how kobolds act when they're traveling across the plains. And so
okay,
it's not bad, you know. Yeah. And he was trying to use his int to his advantage as an artificer, right. But I had to make the DC higher. And in fact, in that scenario, unfortunately, it was really creative, but he didn't quite make it, and so that counted as a failure. And at the end of the skill challenge, they ended up succeeding. They passed. Nice. And how I would have broken that down is, this is another thing that I'll mention. It's important to understand the degrees of failure in a skill challenge, meaning that if you get 3 in that scenario of my example, if they had gotten 3 successes and 0 failures, I would have probably had them stumble across a magic item or something, because it's just been so good.
Or surprise round them or something like that.
Exactly. Yeah. But if they had gotten 0 successes and 0 successes and 3 failures, then it would have just been, I probably would have doubled the amount of kobolds and just had them swarm.
And ambush them, yeah, for sure.
Exactly. But they were able to make it no problem, and because they passed the skill challenge, I had them get the jump on the kobolds. They saw them in the distance, and so they weren't surprised, and they were able to engage them on their terms.
I just pictured your artificer like, oh yeah, you remember in history class the ancient kobold like battle cry, "Kaka, kaka," and he's like,
How can I how can I use this to my advantage?
yeah.
So what about you, man? I'm thinking of the scenario in your Eberron campaign.
Oh yeah. That is a good example. So the crew had just gotten tattoos to remember their fallen party member,
Mhm.
and in Sharn, it's a city of towers. So literally, it goes up into the clouds and like down into the depths, kind of like Coruscant. If you're a Star Wars junkie. But
Hell yeah.
anyway, Sharn Chicken is so all around town. You kind of want to wear these featherfall tokens because if you fall off a ledge, you're going down. So, and these are the last line of defense. So, but in this game, you literally jump off the ledge and you're competing with each other to see like who can activate it the last to see if they can kind of brave as they're like skydiving through these cities. And I had like a complication table of things that would happen as you guys were falling down. Like I think your character, there was like some wizards were like holding like a plane of glass and you just like smashed right through
Yeah.
it. There was a lottery ticket too, like floating in the wind, and someone like had to do a dex check and like see if they could grab it and everything. So it was fun, but I really want to add some more skill challenges to the game, especially out of combat stuff. It really kind of structures it, like you said, and moves the story forward and gives everyone a chance to play in the spotlight.
Right.
Uh,
Like oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say, unlike the player, maybe they like kind of tune out during like the non-combat stuff, and then they like wake up like, oh, it's another combat. Okay, I whack my sword and everything like that. But then they're kind of like their character doesn't do anything like outside of combat or something. Another way to engage them.
Right. And in so for example, and certain classes kind of lean towards skill challenges because so I don't know if you know, but in first edition, the rogues were bad. Rogues were really bad in first edition, and because the only combat thing they got was their sneak attack, and everything else about them was picking locks and opening, climbing and stuff like that. So they really shined in those scenarios. And if you check in the PHB for fifth edition, I think there are two subclasses in the PHB for rogues. One of them is the assassin, which is the most popular one. But the other one actually is the thief.
Thief, yep.
And the thief is inspired by that first edition rogue, the one that specialized in all of the roguish things that aren't combat. And if you have a thief player, you really want to use skill challenge to kind of make them feel good with what their choices were.
That goes off to my next example. A heist. If you don't want to do a lot of combat, or if you don't have a lot of time in your game, if you have a heist, maybe I have like some examples. Maybe someone like the rogue, like the thief rogue, can pick locks. Someone can subdue guards. Someone maybe like your artificer from your zombie campaign can make a replica of the artifact you're trying to steal. If you make it good enough, maybe the heat won't be on you so much.
And then you can have another person with sleight of hands switch it over
Yes!
like in Indiana Jones.
Yes. And then also I have maybe like someone, maybe they set off a trap like in Indiana Jones, and like someone has to do athletics as the door is like closing. They're like, get out, wait, I forgot my hat.
Snatching up as the door closes. Hell yeah, man. And one more example that I would throw out is you can use them in debate/negotiation scenes.
Ooh, very cool.
Because and that, going back to what I mentioned with forcing your players to all make different kinds of checks, one person have to do intimidation, one person has to do diplomacy, that's fourth edition. Persuasion, one person maybe has to do performance, one person has to do deception is the last one. But yeah. And so everyone has to kind of approach it differently and role play it as such. So
yeah, like that courtroom scene, but maybe like one person's like intimidating the witness, and then one of the characters like, Your Honor, we're just trying to get to the truth, like persuasion and stuff like that to try to win this court case.
Mm-hmm. Hell yeah, man. Well, in that case, I think that's all we have for today. Thank you so much, Ian, for talking to me about skill challenges today.
Yeah. Guys, get out there, use some skill challenges. They're awesome. They liven up your game.
Definitely.
Where else can they check us out?
They can check us out on Twitter. Thanks for stopping by today, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks for stopping by, Ian. I hope to talk to you more about D&D topics soon. This has been Game Master Solutions. See you next time.
See ya.